Dong Ge Du Ji Xia Ji Ri Sun Zhong Xin Jia Me De Du Jia Bong Jiang Ba Sir Jia Long Ba Da Ru Ji Be Ge Xia Jia Jia Be Xia Dong Ge Xian Dur Jin Jian Jian De Lo Na Ru Dan Ma Ba Ma La Ji Jie Gang Bo Ba Ba Mo Zhi Ba Jia Wan Zhi Gong Ba Ga Ju La Ma Nam Jie Da Jiong Xie Da Nen De Ne Zi Ra Tam Jie Da Lama la bu la ye ji su zon la zon yon den jam zon a la ban dun le don jen re be ge le zo jen ye su da su jen je de na tu son je ba ma ye sen ge da na ge ma le de da dam je la le dang a ye dang ve sa je a wo da ge lo chu son ro war sen je la do sur chu lam don ro war sen je la do sur lan chu wa se war sen je la do Chuba yi yi zan jia war zan jia la de zui gang ge den jian zhe wan jiao ga ba me ba jie me ba qi ba me ba da me ba wa me ba zhuo me ba da de dun me dun jie me zhu ba ni yi yi den ba zu ba san jie ma nan jie dan ba de la xiang zar de zhen jie za wa la ma jie jie gu zong du jie san lang da de da ge ju lan be de da ge den ba dan sim jian jie dong jia jie zhe ba ra zhen jie la de zo 다음 파파 zambo jo molam je jarpo ndala rabi jonga yobanang chiro yobanang ke jonga pateres rabi jonga pat tene rabi jonga bandala tene sangje dang janchup sembe jislop yongso ngoala ni de so 담보 데카레스나 대긴 희부 지스 라퍼 용숭와 당 이바데 장초 선배 지스 라퍼 용숭와 오스 데니레
So in the commentary to the King of Aspiration prayer for excellent conduct, we have said that there are 16 sections, and now we are in section number 15. And it is called the perfect dedication following the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And that has two parts. One is the full perfect dedication following the Sugatas, the Buddhas. And second is the perfect dedication following the Bodhisattvas.
대긴 희바 희바데 찌르당 나가 망보 휴심바인데 주 데와 드럼네 레베 데와 그 살아 롱킨들라 대긴 희바 세크요레 데데 인나야 대긴 희바 희반데 산제 그 남타도 전라 만지윤데 대긴 희바 희바데 지 다야자 첨본도 지히나 Jodewan and Revedeva Salan Rossi by the Rindo de Mahipta, which you young by and a Sanjay Julam Latin, the Divin Hupa, you've been seeing that Dion was it, Prion was it, the Raja Chad here. Julan Latin, Seva the Sanjay like that are Mandip Jobje, Mandip Jobje, say or Mandipa said the Drajon by Yin Dang, Jancho Sambadang. Nintula so ba the soke nyamto da mandi pa tele chepar da phaba ji jobje yore sanjela ti jobje na ne jimba nyamba mangawa shiba de jinhi tin ne sanje ya ying de yang jinhi tin ma yu de yang jinhi tin gompa po de yang jinhi tin shila chu de yang jinhi tin ma zim de yang jinhi tin ta tana je na kantar jinhi ke seeing the do then is Sanje Norwa than Trua Nayang Jisikimanova. Cotin he said that there's some good Nuba Hukchimo. Nyamba Mangawa said Jimba Nyamba Mangawa said do not so Jinhitingo some came Mambo Yore Mambo Yinaya Ji Royore. The Sanjel di Gia de Yomare Sumare.
So about this term, Sugata, so the first one is the dedication following the Sugatas, and I've explained that before already. So it literally means going to bliss, and so that's why they have that name, Sugata, because they have created the cause for happiness, for bliss, and then that's where they go to. And so, for example, when you see the life story of the Buddha, this is kind of it's weird. Then so there's a lot of stories about why he's called that, and so it's for that reason, the Sugata, because he has gone to into bliss, and that's one reason why he's called that. And another one is more in a kind of smaller scale sense, as in when looking at each of his activities. Because of his activities, the Buddha's activities, he's called the Sugata, or a bliss gone one. And quality of a Sugata is that a Sugata, a Buddha, possesses 18 unique qualities. And so unique because they are not possessed by anyone else, not even the Arhats or the Bodhisattvas and the Shravakas and so on. They do not have this kind of level of experience and realization yet. So the 18 unique qualities of a Buddha even surpass really high qualities like those of the Arhats and so on. So one of those qualities is that the Buddha possesses an unfailing mindfulness. He's never without mindfulness. So whatever the Buddha does, he's mindful. Whether he's standing up, he's mindful, or sitting down, he's mindful, or walking, he's mindful, or when he's eating, he's mindful, or going to sleep, he's always mindful. And because the Buddha is always mindful, the Buddha doesn't make mistakes or doesn't act in confusion. It is impossible for a Buddha to do that because he possesses this unfailing mindfulness. So mindfulness that is unfailing is also like never falling into forgetfulness. So for example, many of us think that I want to practice mindfulness, and even though we are thinking that that's what we want to do, then we forget about it again. But the Buddha never forgets about it.
Tene tebyin hikpa hibader tsek tonen rehe jabayin hubayina. Jetan tsek tolen rehe yore de nadawen rehe hunan reksare perna lunga ge chupa chetar jikyo na yang de tat sem ki tin hitin yong bandala tebyin hikpa as hikpa hibada jetan jabe chane cha de yore. Tanawen tsek tolen rehe hunan reksare tani ta kantar sanje hibade ta teta je chada yudu tani te ke chetara sepa yindu ta ngarang choke ya ji thoba tani teta we thoni tani ta ngowa ji go yu barwa ta te go yina kanda ji go yu resedu ti tsik te ke kanyang tu sum hikbe jarwa ye 장축 주법 모람 제라 남 장부 주법에 장축 상제네 대군 다그말 쪽버져서 다 강영 시베 책대 저당 아주 찍릉종로 마제바지 베나 마망보 요네 티나니 마직 다버지게 메인로 야마존네 데네 지용케 난 디낭니 디니 다 야와 탐지 지순 두순데 히바 네버 산제 마옹버 산제 다다버 산제 다 대소 참말라 디긴 히바 히벤 친직데 참말라 토쿠요레 디긴 히바 jarwas to sun hip kayan to sun hip jarwa yes bad chancho ju bo molam se da nam song ta to so ke tene ngon tambo chancho ju tomar semji bane tomar semji bane zonde sang maje je bar de tene ta chancho ku ju ba ta na tsopala je yo barwa de hyo yo bare chancho ju bo molam se da nam si bade ji dan de wo ji gang yang gong ta ji wen ti ci chen ri do go je ben de gang yang hi ba de na cik dan de jor je ma je ma ine de pe chu lo je yo re ji ba ma ba jor wa yo go de inji ne jor go na de inji na ma jor go de ale ho re re ne re re che te na ta ore ore sunra ji ine ya tak ta re chu te ko do
So then this term Sugata also, so it can be explained in different ways, just that what the word itself means. What it also means is, so when one engages, it is someone who, whatever they do, whether they engage in activities of body or speech, their mind is always in a state of mindfulness. So here, so Deshin Shekpa, right, it means Sugatam, and the Deshin is to bliss, blissfully, and then Shekpa is to go. So Shek here has to do with activity, basically. So whatever activity we do, we go toward bliss, which is we practice it with mindfulness. We do it with, or he does it with mindfulness, a Buddha. And so here we are making a prayer that just as those Buddhas have done, we too want to be able to practice in this way. So this is how we dedicate. And so then verse here and says, may I completely fulfill all perfect aspirations to the enlightened activity of the victorious Buddhas of the three times by attaining enlightenment according to the deeds of Samantabhadra. So the first in Tibetan, it begins with of the victorious Buddhas of the three times, and it says literally any one of them, any one of the victorious Buddhas of the three times. And so any one, because it is not necessarily anyone in particular. So just to pick anyone, someone out of a group of people, you just pick anyone. So just like that, any. So any of the victorious Buddhas of the three times of past, present, and future. Then completely fulfill all the perfect aspirations to the enlightened activities is the second line in the Tibetan. So completing this begins with, in the very beginning, with the motivation of bodhicitta, of enlightenment. May I practice according to their enlightened activities in whichever way they did.
Sanje tamje ke tambo lopa lam ke tambo thomar semji ban zon de tene sang ma sanje ju kompang Mato part tab yalbuk molam ta sebdana bacha ta vichi yuna chama ngarang drone ne teni yindong chi par hyo shibetong re ta tetar yongwa sibala teni thomar suso ge zambo chu bala lhob go yo re song bare ta teke zambo chu be sangchup sangje ne so ba se du cherde na par de simba zhou dang du yala so bala lam ne nyam ne chi chen da cha de yo barwa teni ndela lam ne teni soso sang ma je na soso sanje ji gompa ma da na sanje tamje ge da ye bam ta molam de yongsu zo ba che rab to ko yo ma re song re teni te ne teni thomar soso tambo sangje parar che 다 소소 상제버 세네 되니 대에 그따 여기 모람 근데 말루바드니 다 이게 바드린다 말루바 용수 조버제서 다 모람 가레르스네 인동 인핀 다 랍치버기 인핀 드전 대랑 거돌라 다용바 이제 탐지 모람데
So we pray that starting from the motivation of bodhicitta until attaining enlightenment, may I perfectly fulfill all of these aspiration prayers by all those Buddhas. That is, may I be able to act for the benefit of others. And in order for that to happen, first you have to one has to train in excellent conduct. And as we said before, that consists of paramitas, the 4 ways of gathering disciples, and so on. And third line, this training, which in the Tibetan here is by attaining enlightenment according to the deeds of Samantabhadra, is the third line in Tibetan. So through the paramitas and so on, you train and you practice and then attain enlightenment. And if I would not enlightenment, I would not fulfill the aspirations of all the Buddhas. So therefore, I first must attain enlightenment, which then completes their aspirations, which is the 4th line in Tibetan, and here's in the beginning in English again. May I completely fulfill. That's the first line, which is the 4th line here. So may I completely fulfill all the aspirations of the Buddha, that is attaining enlightenment and then accomplishing the benefit of others with an altruistic mind.
Then that average chatter, Namjo Matsu Molandan Dongoyore. Kunzang Dorji Chanchin Minche Neso, Chuku Kundu Zambo, Chuku Dorji Chan Kundu Zambo ne Mazona Tenil, Sanjeta Chancho Sambatan, Jupalama Sama, Tinan Toyongoa, Tinchin Zavalama Inchet, Tata Soso Kirani Loyo, but Zavalama Yora T. 다 산제다 장초 선바나 되니 게위신이 남바 ken robo tondo molang kang tapa tan roa thamji ki tondo molang kandra tabyo yo ba ina yang deda thamje da kin robar khos ta samsanga so da yin robar khos ma yore de da kin robar kho labna ta ngarang kene tsakhurne tike lengin raw de yongsu zo ba nga ke ne drop ta ba khos 다 다다바다 nga 수수수수 nga 롬보체 스마라웨나 nga랑 짜침보 찌데와데 인동라 비주 용안데 다 추크거는 잠보네 다다 그 짜블라마 파르드 안타 야바트 제가 장가찌나 장장 문이바 데니 잠블랭데 나나 제 마주라오웬 말록데와이나 흉무타바 하장게 자침보 대다베지 임바이나양 되니 다 소소게 임몰람된 러버효 산네 되니 셈답 침보지 지용드 텔레테네 소소라 산제니 존데 주버 자블람 바르드 데니 신랍당 툭지에 뇌바 차마 전팅지에 팅효로 데 그래 소소게제 용딘 팀 충충제 있네야 이긴라 핀토도 반데야 디 알라 뚜용고 요래 용딘 제총로 마도 용딘 충충제나 이긴라 핀토데와 용고 요래가 해 네 된다다 몰람데 땀 따발데네 몰람데 드럽 용거 요바 인데 네 나초게 데다 중고 요래 디콜라
So normally there's this prayer that we make. It says starting from the Dharmakaya, Samantabhadra, and Vajradhara down to through all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the lineage masters down to the kind root, whatever aspirations they all have made for the benefit of all beings, may I also accomplish that. Sometimes in this prayer we say, may self and others accomplish that. But if we say, may I accomplish that, it's even stronger because then I'm saying it all onto myself. I am going to accomplish this. So may I accomplish all of this for others. Normally, we consider this I, me, as very important. And now we are using me for the benefit of others. So just as the Dharmakaya and the lineage gurus and the root guru have prayed. And so if we were to count all of these aspiration prayers, the number would just be too many. They are just incalculable aspirations, really. Their aspirations are so that even if the entire world would be a vessel, the aspirations couldn't be contained in it. There would be even more. So accomplish all these aspirations. So that's the kind of courage we must develop. All these aspirations of the Buddha and the lineage masters up until the root guru. And if you make this prayer, then it also becomes a force that draws in, that summons their blessings, their compassion, their power. And actually, even if one possesses a slight quality, a small quality to benefit others, this is really where this ability comes from such an aspiration. So therefore, such an aspiration will be accomplished accordingly. It's important that we also make effort in such aspirations.
tene da nipa te janchup sempe par yung sungwa song da janchup semba ke jis da labne ngwa de la ya tene janchup kun zambo ke jis la par go ni yung sungwa chek tang tene papa jambar ji jis la par go ni yung sungwa na ba ni yo eso zambo jis go ni kun zambo jis la par ngwa tela yang na ngwa ngutang tene sor tak dajin da jaju somba ke jis lab go yo na lab go ne ngwa go yo res na donda ni yo bares.
And then the second verse for this section is the perfect dedication following the bodhisattvas, and that one has two parts and of two verses. And the first one is perfect dedication following the bodhisattva Samantabhadra, and the second one is the dedication following Manjushri. And so regarding the first one, the dedication following Samantabhadra, that one also has two parts. The first one is like how we actually follow in making dedications of Samantabhadra. And then the second one is the dedication, the actual method, the way to dedicate following Samantabhadra.
Jesus lapu goni ngoa shibande tambu kundu zambo sikarere tande renga zoke tsege tonen rehe hubayen du shibade du namba du kundu si neba kapsu mamba kapsu tata kapsu du kundu zambo si ta du namba kundu zambo hibande la goa chambo yore karere se du tsu njirwa sona yang zambo ke juba zambo ke jamze da de so len jura yo mare tu da na ba kun de zambo cha de yo jamze de so len jura mi jamze de ni ganza le tu ne jura mi nga da ganza o de ganza te lap chimbo de top chimbo de na de so le chi ya ya chi jo de nyam tha na de so le chi ro ya da o de mi ba 산지 눈에 펴봐 있나요 대바 다 장족의 요대바 되는 소송은에게 심지 배는 잠수난 그 냐당 루발라서 바탐지 냠도 힘내 로아 있나요 잠바당 되니 도서 제와도 봐 요대바 냐당 루발도 냠다 대야 요르와 선배자는데 가와이나 지와는 이게 대답 탐제를 이와 미바디야 제 인게 지속으로 많이 다도나 인로 많이 봐 이와 미스드 참말 정보인 바 군도 정보스 이 책들 군도 세드네 제 손나로 초아지 린터 바데 거요래 용알아 토마르티 책들 하고 그저 같이 뭐래.
So first is the actual dedication training for the actual dedication follow. So first we should understand this word Samanta. What does Samantabhadra mean? So in Tibetan, Samantabhadra means Guntu Sangbo. The first one, Guntu, means at all times. So past, present, and future, all the time. So Guntu and Sangbo means good or excellent. So ever excellent, always good. So always also implies that as time goes, he changes. He never changes or wavers from his conduct or his loving kindness for others. So it's not like a person who their kind of expression toward others. So no matter who he meets, he treats everyone equally. So it says there is no change to people. For example, if he meets a very powerful, influential person, he wouldn't treat them any better. And when he meets like a poor, kind of humble being, then he wouldn't just look down or ignore them. So of course, if the Buddha would come in person, then already have a mind of faith, devotion, and bodhicitta in his mind. So that's always. So no matter with who he associates, is always the same. So for example, if that bodhisattva associates with fish and turtles, would have this love and compassion for them, like toward anyone. Would be no difference in terms of preference, like not one is better than the other or preferred. Everyone is the same. There's a state of complete equanimity. And equanimity here does not mean indifference. It's not that it's kind of like a kind of less a piece of rock. So it means that it is love for everyone, a goodness toward everyone, looking after, caring everyone equal. The meaning of Gunsang or Gunto Sangbo. It's Gunsang or Gunto Sangbo. And so when you hear this word and understand the meaning of Gunto Sangbo, then a real feeling should arise within the mind. And that's why it's important to know what the word actually means.
Gundu Zambu Jisulamne, the Gotar de Garinat, Tambo de Jawa Gunji, Sejin Pass, Second Tambote. Dan the Karchimbo Huicha de Yore. Gundu Zambu Hibate, Jawa Gunji, Sidiang, Jawa, Tatak Sanje Hakjatuba, Tipo Tau, Main Bar. Da Gantar Karzan Sanje Tong Yoba, the so. 마인 다다 두송다 상제 유도 좋게 제 세차도 요리스 세제 토워자 토워시 베책의 가르스나 초도 줄바 돈 세는 그세 초도 줄바 다 군도 잠보데 되네 세는 산제 탐지에 그 세는 그세 초도 줄바 인고와데 가르치네리 장초 그셈 제와 닌지 침보 스미 바 도도브 히랍 대섬 그 토랑 아소 배는 초다 뭐 지소는 초와 주당지 요라 다 코랑 그 지금 초와 주당지 용서 봐 디칼라 아소 지소는 초와 주데 칼라사야 잡로 공양다고 당 야지 요라 다 코랑 게 칼라사야 이나레 잡로 공야 이나레 사답 잠바 와 되니 히랍 대섬 그돈 바 용서 봐 되는 도 요바레스 디자네 되니 초도 줘봐 시바데 요래
And then how are we going to train in or following the training of conduct of Samantabhadra? The next verse says, the eldest son of the victorious Samantabhadra, I do all these virtuous actions that my deeds may be like his. So it begins with the eldest son of the victorious Buddhas. So it also says Gun, so all Buddhas, so the oldest son of all the Buddhas, and because Muni, but for example, fortunate Aeon, there are 1,000 Buddhas, and the Buddhas of the past, present, and the future. So Samantabhadra is one of all those Buddhas. So then it says the eldest son. So this term literally means the supreme, like the kind of the highest, the best son, the supreme son of all those Buddhas. So of all the sons of a Buddha, Samantabhadra is supreme. And why? Because he possesses and also he had realized non-duality. He has the wisdom that knows the truth of all things, true reality. So therefore, in whatever he does, comes from that place of love, compassion, and wisdom. So his entire life, like when he's eating, dressing, and wearing clothes, and so on, whatever, all of love, compassion, and wisdom. And for this reason, he is called the supreme of all the Buddhas.
Chitang nga tsu koala ne de besimjin na yang Jancho sem kejing ma jik zang la ji ba na ya di nga su sanji ke se lan jon ro ko yo re song yo. Pe na nang ka de lon chu do lon chu wa di ring di yun zam la nga su sancho sem na ya di yun zam te su la nga su sanji ke se cha de ko yo re se. Ko wa na yu yin da. Tene se hi ban de karen da wa je ri na de la kwa ya manda wa ka hien do wa. De pe na se hi ban de 고산 징킨도 임베찬에 세 베나 저부 세 타베지 이나 저부 테 고산 징킨 마옹 발란제야 그틴 키데 반도 티찬에 세 히바 야삼노 땅 단초 선반도 야송아이나 데니 산제지 공팡데라야 라 틴도 키용 거요 바티찬에 세세네 고야 제요레 양 고아 인 렌당 제우데 다세 히바데 파마 그 제와 하장 첨보데 다 문화 가르친지 차로 요러 때는 디상지로 뿌지 요나 뿌그때 파마니 때게 문화 가르친 휴지 차도 요러 제와 텍사 오늘면 때 차도 요러 디 인도 되니 나초라 장조 그셈 다 제와 닌지 첨보 줄을 지엔데 다 산지에게 산지 탐지에게 문에 제와 텍사스면 레와지사 다 내게 제 마음 발라 띵바다 심진을 핀도바지 용거리 삼네디 레와치 사제 차도요레 디차닝 가서 세 히바든 저고야 데레 단진 침보진 그 간사지이나 다 산지 나마 탐진 침비 히유 인들라 바자야 칼 카보르와 간선 단진 요 랑 란동 덤도야 마도 제 띵바 라 되네 이제 삼노 동야데 용거 말와 용거 미잔 틴텔라다 레와 잠나야 된다고지로 잔초 샘다 닌지 용킨 된다라 다 레와 자야 자바이나 되네 코 레와 자바나이 코랑게 디토라 되네 레가데 레 되네 렘지 냠뇽 사랑이기도 코게 인동게 삼노데 혁체를 지른로 랍체를 지른로고 요르와 간스 마 데바 인자 denza kantar se hibande tene kodo mangbo je yobares
So if we just give a rise, even just a moment of bodhicitta for sentient beings in samsara, then for this duration of time, we also become the children of the Buddhas. For example, even if it is just as long as lightning in the sky, like a flash of an instant, if bodhicitta arises for a flash of an instant, this time, however long it lasts, one becomes a son or a daughter of the Buddha, even though one still lives in samsara. So this term, the son, here, different ways to explain that, different ways to understand. And one is that it has to do with, it is not an ordinary term for son, it's the honorific term for son. In English, we don't have honorific. But in this kind of son, the honorific son, refers to a person who is about to be on a higher status, someone who is about to rise to a higher status. So that makes them supreme. For example, if one is the son of a king, like a prince, it's already decided that you will rise to become a king and rule over the kingdom in the future. It's already decided. And similarly, when we become bodhisattvas, when we give rise to bodhicitta, then it's already decided that we are going to attain enlightenment. So it's this kind of the kind of higher honorific term for son. So that's one way to understand that term, and another one is just like the child of parents. parents love their child, consider the child as very precious and most important, so they give all their love to the child. And so then, in the context of the Buddhas, what that means is that if we give rise to love and compassion, to really great bodhicitta, the Buddhas will put their hopes in us. So the be like the parents and be like the child, so they would give us their love, but in the sense that they would put their hopes in us. Hope is that there is hope that this person who has given rise to bodhicitta is going to actually benefit sentient beings in the future. So this is the kind of son or child we become. So the Buddhas can put their hopes in us. And if someone is a very selfish person, has a lot of self-grasping, then of course the Buddha also looks after them with their omniscient mind. But it's difficult to put their hopes in that person because the person is currently too selfish and is not going to do much for other beings. So the Buddhas can see very clearly that they are not going to want to do much for the Dharma, for sentient beings. So therefore it would be kind of futile to put their hopes into them because there is no compassion. But if already cultivate a great compassion, love and compassion, and become someone where the Buddhas can put their hope in, because they know that once you have that, you will also act accordingly. Gradually, as you continue to practice, so gradually then this wish to benefit others becomes stronger and stronger. Know that because you already have their foundation. They already see you have the foundation for that. And so that's another way. In Tibetan it's see here, is the sun.
다다히 강라 단진 침보진 토솔라 산제 개와 지금 말에 두 양과 너닝 그요 말에 데 인토소 산제 그 루동라고지 루라고 땅내 파 남이 야야야를 베스는 데 말에 럼바 인도 라파르제 송도 가서 남주 장초선 그 nom발인도 라파르제 디나예 단진 침보지 간사텔라 레와 디 담보 코랑 그치 인핀 인돈 드야게 레와데 담보 잠나 마잠나리 코그테 콜 레와 김바 가레르스 담보 그 단진데 메탑지게 요레 텔 레와 자게 요레 다 산제 그 레와 나오데 담보 코랑 그주 단진 데 마미 탑라 아니 딕당 요르와 제발테레 단진 혁총아 제와 혁치아 진제이나 대그치 인도르야라 뭐나지 인도르야게 당와 세나리 인도르야라 레바지 제바이나 림본다고 제 차도 요러와다랑 되는 다시 잠지 다 산지게 잠바다 제고 그다 룸라고는 요래데 삼바 다 룸저하네 다 제고게 징커는 요래 거랑 요래데 abjeta rewan rawdela ko tanjin de pasir tabla rewachi.
So now, having said that, the Buddha don't put their hopes in like those who have a lot of self-grasping, so you shouldn't misunderstand that too. Don't take this to mean that, well, there's just some people that just kind of are hopeless and it just basically just forgets about them because there's no hope in them and just ignores them. It's not like that. It's just that they still have to do some training gradually. For example, when we take the Bodhisattva vow, in there it says, so may I train in stages in the Bodhisattva's conduct. So we train in stages gradually. So that person that has self-grasping, it's not that he's entirely hopeless, but in order to really become someone to benefit others, first he has to get rid of, cultivate an altruistic mind. Otherwise, there's no way he's going to be others. So the Buddhas do have hopes in them. The hope is that they will give up their self-grasping. But of course, they don't have this hope that is going to benefit beings extensively, still very selfish. So first they hope that may that person be free of self-grasping. So it just depends how much self-grasping someone has. If someone doesn't have so much self-grasping, greater care for others, then they will act for the benefit of others for the one with self-grasping. And so that's why the Buddhas put their hopes in them in terms of benefiting others. So then it would make sense, actually. It would make more sense to put their hopes in someone who benefit others. So that doesn't mean, however, that they are giving up on someone who has a lot of self-grasping. Everyone is always included in like the mandala, love and compassion. It's just there are certain individuals who first have to get rid of self-grasping.
Zambo yinba za ma che teni ku zambo ke ta chuba na kare yore sina teni perna sanje jewa mambo ke teni hinkam to so teni kong ke dara de hlomar jope chompong norzang pers norzang pers norzang chompong norzang wa som봉지 번 얼상을 데라 돈 듣고 요래 다 돈 듣봐 내가 갈로가 더제드는 더니산지 대소 참마더니 돈 네바 되요래세 다 괜찮게 되더라 근데 zambo Sombong keban berzan larbe. Sombong keban apa ya? Ewe. Kare. Ji rimpa je so ji Good example tunyak ne ba yores good 장초什么 good example 전부 그래서 통통으로 하자 담지 참아 지다 그 번호 장차的是吧근데 잠복 코너 땡이라 봐 근데 코너 땡게다 네바 넘바 근데 잠복 근데 잠복 내가 임바 기바도 르마 이 섬지거니 잠복 임바 봐요
And then the second line in the English, so second line is is called Samantabhadra. The eldest son of the victorious Buddhas is called Samantabhadra. And so we have explained the term Samantabhadra, Gunto Sangpo. There's another explaining it, and that is, so Gunto, Gun means also all in general, all. And it could refer here to all of his activities of body, speech. So Guntu together, that means times, all times. So all the time good. And Sangpo, Guntu Sangpo, Sangpo means good. So all good or ever good. And it does not just mean good or excellent, it also always powerful. And for example, before we said that what Samantabhadra showed to the merchant's son Sang is that within a single atom there are millions and billions of Buddhas and Pure Lands. So he has the power to demonstrate that to the merchant and Norsang. So that is his power. So Gunto Sangpo means at always, so at all times and in all activities, he's excellent and powerful.
Deni da sumba de kepa de dan chongbar jebe ser se da de da we zambo yinba la deni kepa yinba deni kepa de janchuk jeba la juchor tamje la deni kepa yinba tabla kepa yinba janchuk da zam janchuk juba la kepa yinba rewa 대단 총발 집에서다 대단 라운라고 되는 소소 디 주바 대단 라운라고지 주트야 지도 다 담지 지가 바들와 교환다 다 담지 랍동 호스 다 교와 방호니 세게 단데 교와 대 방호인데 되는 소로 처티게 누바데 처 토고요 가서 총강는 론 잘라지 뇨고나 잘라 the party go yora rimba party na then yora dina hinke ta gewa soso rani ke dusum da kantar sa ya be gewa tamji then hogi ngo go jumsin de then chanchu sumba kundu zambo ke juba tawa gomba gare ne ya chama da de chongbu chi de then hogi sana andong tere.
Then the third line that is end of the English, so that my deeds may so it says in a Tibetan too that in order to become just like this kind of expert, it says here, this great master. So this master, he's not just excellent, but he's also an accomplished master. And I want to emulate all of his activities. My activities become just like, may I emulate this master? Yeah, that's what it basically says. In order to emulate this master, and then virtuous actions, which is the fourth line in Tibetan. So when I dedicate my virtue, then in this way, for example, if you go buy something in a store, you have to pay for it first, and when you pay, then you get your thing. And so similarly, when you dedicate your virtues after 3 times, what the reason for doing that, what you get for doing that, is that I'm doing that so that my everything resembles Samantabhadra. My activities, my view, my meditation practice and so on. May I fully emulate all the deeds of Bodhisattva Samantabhadra.
Right, Drebetone, Danghoa de la Mojing Hoya, Berna, Soso Gypsum Malare Pata Baina, Dumbayo Baina, Denida, Dahi Sarkanda was a journey, Dingwanda, Dene, like a sage in Toba, Marpalos like a say Mambo, Yubananga, Lopso Mambo, Yubananga, Dakong, Malare Bate, Chod Jurbacha, the Swainza, sage in Toba, some Malareba. Dig mainla Gahisa, Seda, Gypsy Malareba can see Tubaga Hurwa. Then that Drupachim Cho Tamchi Nagata, Chod Jurbanda, then Malareba Inza, dead and Sumba, take a cheapa, Kandachi, and a dead and Sumbar, then Daga dead to be cheated, give on the Mogi easy. Then that Della right in my own yayore, Bernard. Malare Bala, Yang, the Korso, Kolo Mambu Yubananke, then Tara, then Sage To, the Jeba Cheddar, Jeba Yindo, then is also got you to Ho Hibatawa. Then Gambo Bala Yang, Sage, say, Senan Kolo Mambu Yubananke, and Robu Pamo Drabatawa. That Rajin, then Kantar Susu Zavel Malamatok Pardu, then Susok Moland and Debchogure. The Molan didn't so get the potop, Yichikutop. That's all Karchimbocha, the Yoruba did. Then Suso get Benazavelama. Catini, Timbatan Rovutundo, Gogoneri, Tojugonek, Cheddar, and Zekayo by Inaya. Soso, take a good song, took G. Sinaptam Churchone, then Timbata Simjin Damja Pintoy. Molande, Hoa, che Simbetone. Moi since the Sosoke, the Mount Atal, Sada Sopanjo, but gave a Tamji, the Moho, Pat Simji Tamjela G. Ne, dig top teletin, that Anjorico, then Molam the Don to Bare Jalaji in a Rimbanda. La Inza, Sosolo top here, top Nipa, each other Yoruba.
And you can apply this prayer to any other guru. For example, in the case of Milarepa, so for example, if you want to become like Milarepa, then you can change the wording of this prayer, dedication prayer, and say, for example, the Supreme Son of Marpa, and so forth. And so Marpa had many disciples, and among these disciples, Milarepa was the supreme. And his name was, Milarepa's name, birth name was Tubaka, which is like translated as like good news, but it means also pleasant to hear or something like that. So the greatest supreme hearing. So that's Milarepa. So may I become just like that. And then we can apply that to the other masters. For example, Milarepa himself had many disciples, and among them his supreme son was Gampopa. So may my activities resemble his. We can also pray in this way. And then Gampopa also had many disciples, and among them, the supreme disciple, for example, one of them was Pangmudrupa. Continue this until your own root guru and pray in that way. What's important is to have what's important is your strength of faith, and basically you want to emulate the activities of those great holy masters. So if it's your own root guru, then you can think that, may I emulate the guru's body, speech, and mind, that he engages in for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings. And if I follow these, then the Guru's blessings of body, speech, and mind will enter my mind. And then I will be able to benefit the teachings and sentient beings. So this is the prayer we should make. And then this prayer also should include a dedication where we completely let go of all our virtues accumulated in the 3 times, giving it all up for the sake of sentient beings through dedication. So then it is just like you're purchasing something and you already paid for it. So once you paid for it, it is certain that you will also get it.
Tandela Sambo Jibu Molan Sung Papote Kundu Zamborewas. Then Sung Sambo Jibu Norzanrua, then Kundu Zambu Juba, that on Sumbar Ju Ho Senatini Gris. That is Tobandro. They can ne young look, they can Gaha Kona Toba Younger Yorita. Toba Kansan de Zanju Molan Sunkin, the Kundu Zambor. The Kundu Zambu Korank, Kundu Zambu Korank Juba, and Sombar Hills, Molatana, and then Karina, Samsando, Yores. Then Delata, Debachi, your Kong, that rap Mambung Kebachi, Kong, the Junko Maris, Majo Jimson, then Sombung could burn Norzang, data, Molam de Song Yong by a song. Then there is Sipo Chasa. Chamasa. Sombung burn Norzanke, then the data of Hakovich. O nges Kundazamba Jubana, you go dosa Hakoya Chid, Song Yabari song. That Darari, then do Natsu Nabasanje Puchun de la Battling drawing Chijute Chichu Jig Yorinda. Then drawing young Sinango song that gave Hinaba Jabjingachim Boche or you Baketa gave Hinaba Sundo Ayans. Drawing on Hibande Lamsang. Sixom da was la tanda mariwa pinsun tanda when the throttling pinsun still commerce non tanda chujute chuk sudar sibala tene pinyu ma toke niba yo mare ten za chula sudar sibade soso ke semla sudar chi yong yore namjung aso dangwa nang da song yore chu ji zawa ma ju se sem ji zawa chu song yore 대인자 추지 자와 마지오 센드 추르 돌랭 마지 세거 요마레 추 소소게다 데이터베체 도바 제나레 tana게 저와나오제 hlab용고 요드 데 소소게 추로도 소냠도 핀순 tanache 바이나 데니 디토네 소소레 휴 핑게 요레 셈데게 소소 셈게 고도 난추로 고도데 땡사르로 요르와 Sen that Rintang Chiku Dere, Nazo Yinda Gare Yonamena, Semna la Chik Chuju Godon Rawate, Nazo Kakela de Labre, Loji, Daji, Yaji si. That Yaji suggested Nima Rin and Yargendo and Chula Godo, Cherswaina, Antambore. They menaya, Dawa Rin and didn't chuk, Negaha Koro Korondroina, Dean Hajayabore. They men a lord in Naniche, Jugdom with you, Muneche, Chula, to some gum, Javache Palatine, then Semcotola, Antambo, the Jurando Yateri, Semcotola and Jurando, Chu Shiba the Carriers, Ju Shibatonri, Ju Shiba the Serchul and Jorsonare, Ju said Zoji Jabacha. Zoji Jabade, Danzini. 단지 총을 동화데 조지 차가 요래 센나 침보 진제나 센나 총을 동화데 조지 잡 동래 란두 침보 진이나 인라 삼노 땅히바데 데 가르스고 데 조지 태벽에 레벨도 오래 데니 다 데이터가 그톤에 제 추바데 주시바 동인데 가서 단다 베네데니 야지에 땅 거요래 Yarjen Ruaina, Chugotoni, Churanke, Yarje, pena gompa ra sang da na gompa jik zam yar jin ro ta ba yin na chu ko ne chen da la ping ge yore che sma la ping ge yore bar do la ping ge yore de na sang no dang mo to ne nga zo ge ngune je chu se go yu ni so su sem de truka la yo de wa ro chu se ba de pe pa ka chi le yo de ba pa ka chi le yo de ba den da ga sang no dang ma ya ji chu se am chong no go ne zar hibu dong ra wa ji sem nang lang string to ba je go yo re sem zo ju ja ji ro wa sam ya ra wa ji da den sa de a den da darang re da de da
So it was the Bodhisattva Samantabhadra who gave these teachings, and the one he taught was the merchant son Norsang. And so therefore, because this was the disciple there at that time, for this reason, Norsang would therefore say, may my activities resemble those of Samantabhadra, because that was his at that time. And so one might wonder that we we really have to say Samantabhadra, or like how does this we may wonder about why Samantabhadra. And so there's one master called Taranatha from Tibet, a great master who generations in the past, and he said that this actually is not a problem, because Samantabhadra taught it to Norsang so that Norsang understands. In order for him to understand, this is how it was taught. So therefore, one thinks, may my activities resemble Samantabhadra's. So because Samantabhadra was the teacher, and he wanted to be like that teacher. And so, but that can be applied to others as well. So for example, one quality of the Buddha Dharma is that there's a lot of debate and discussion and questions and answers. Actually, the great masters like Gachin Rinpoche and so on always say that. They always ask us to discuss the Dharma one another. And discussing or debating doesn't mean to be harsh to one another, in an unkind way, but it just means to ask each other to refine one's own understanding. And so in this way, we refine our understanding of the Dharma, and that can only be beneficial. It's never harmful. Because as we refine our understanding, like polish our understanding of the Dharma, what we are really polishing is our mind. So in another instruction, it says, do not cut the root of phenomena or inquire into the nature of phenomena, but cut the root of the mind. So do not cut the root of phenomena does not mean that you shouldn't discuss the Dharma. One should still discuss the Dharma, because if there are some questions, some doubts in one's mind, and one discusses them with one's Dharma friends, it will only be of great benefit to one's mind. It will deepen one's understanding of the Dharma. And that is really the greatest, the most important thing. What's most valuable is our understanding of the Dharma. And that is what we are trying to develop all the time. So ideally, if we develop that single day, then that is the best. Or at least maybe every we develop it, that is also excellent. Or even just like every year, you're doing something to develop it. But basically, to listen to the Dharma and to reflect on it and to practice it is really the best way to transform one's mind. And the word Dharma itself actually literally means, so it's true in Tibetan, Dharma means true, And it means to like to fix something, like you're fixing something by transforming it. And what needs to be fixed is our self-grasping. So we need to eliminate that, reduce it and eliminate it. Or if one is really stingy, then one needs to fix that. Or if one is really selfish, one needs to fix that. And so ultimately, the ultimate result of having fixed the mind is that one will only think about the benefit of others. This is the resultant state of mind that once we have fixed the mind through the Dharma. So fixing also has to do with improvement, developing. We have to develop our mind and work on our mind. That's the meaning of the Dharma. And if we just take one step in that direction, and then whatever it is will be of benefit in this life and in future lives and in the Bardo. Our point is that Dharma shouldn't be seen as something that is like separate from you, like here you on the one hand, and over there you have the Dharma. But the Dharma has to become you. And so that's the meaning of Dharma. And it's good to know the meaning of that, because whenever you hear just the word Dharma or Chu in Tibetan, then immediately you understand what it actually means, and you will remember, oh, this is the Dharma. It means I have to change or kind of fix my mind.
Chu Shiban Dharma Shiban the Pukele Tondo Tongne Ton Kapsu Chu Shiba Tonan Jugo Yore Huimba. That Chu Shibalan Juko Yona, Karechin Jews in Malari, Tele Chus, Karechi Yagabare. Pukele Sir Dharma Shibadrat, Sir John Jew Malala. Tongo to the Juri no Karechi Malala Sedu, Chus Yago and the Jertan Dharma Nangchu Hibaton. Like Jartikela. Chu Hiba the Janketa Chu Samas Yonkepa Chutam Yelan Joke Don Chada Yovarwa. That did that during the Chu Hibala journey Yabayina. Sabang around to go goyaken, Namba Sanje book Chu Della go to Kuyores. The Kandabo Koko Yorisina Masu Jidra Jebral and Juba Sevaji Yori. Jidra City J mainte Ma Sebral and Joktobaji. Data Vichada Yori. They can write Charles na Jake means that young mange jokes the Tataba, take Gotaba, Godon Tadaba, dinner. That in a big land. Berna, Jedam Chinwa jeans and Chinwa Setera, Chinwa jeans and Chinwa Lana Zondun Kitchen, Chinwa Yung Kinji Gray. That data will mambo huge Yorba. Chinwa jeans in a Sedrapa Gotogo Mare. Yin a young Duletune. Dula tu yung bayina, then a Muslim you a Muslim and Machikan Tinwa Zondo yuna, Tinwa Jin Launa Mother Kato Gotokoyore. Drakoran Kotanke. O D. Jums in Latine, then it are Dharma Hiba the Chus and Dutz, Kato and Namba Sanji Buddha Dharma, Shiba de la Gotokoyuza, then it Chus and Yaya Baris. O day in Zanta, Gantar, Mazok Semzo Jaya Dictoni, de la Chusegori. Then the drawing chi into drawing Kadavichi Gorisidi, Namje Naranke Laviati and the drawing chera, Pacher, Samsa, the Katsu Hondoya, and Truba Hondoya, Nikayore, des Trubasina, Katsu and our Horbe Nikayore. De Mayuchi. That Ravina de la Mamboyor de that Yabaina. So get Tendaji inside somebody par laps much get certela or de marine that and there is the new yake namju the peg. Namju Mariniak Namju Hirab Niak Hirab the Caragos and Parkama de get sick Kandalapso. Dini don't carry lapson, te yap oha Gobtoni Churank Pal Link and Ajago, Tika some tang Twaina. Then drawing cups the Medeva the Chago Mare. The Choranke Namju Chimbutoni pa, Tsar Chimbut Kola pa, Reheja Topsonarwa, Yinla Pinsonare. Jertank also choose about the Linjaya Rankichi, the Dolenchia Rankichi, the Tariwando Marite, young there, Tahigan Huban, same the Sidorchia Chido, Goyozan, Gole Hina, Golok Higoris, Agora, Bubak, Tabalado, Gole Hijan, Golok Higoris. Golok the Higo, the Dolenchi, go Yobaha Guazam Mepimba, Dolenchi. Soso da mountain but this lion didn't soso ben trouble chaswina, then the Keo Marwa. Then oh, that lapart the master pagina, that rolling so said your Jipusa Marida, then it does don't that miss a more control. Rolling Jibatella, Soso get such a some don't such a Yimping Rankaton rolling Jigo, your de marina. Da yin gets a lion but the solar. Ne the Kindo Gamadosan, Tapjet the Zoji, so rank Laya the yin some jetin Zimbabwe my hook down, rolling during Boji Tavela Soba, Yongo Yobares. Jamie, too much in the Mambo Yorada. Maybe Yara too much. Yeah. Yeah, Larang. Sebra, the knee that there Muslim Yuna, Muslim and Machina, taken to a Cordona. That's a rat, Sedar Carson, Muslim Carson. Muslim the Sedara, Tinania, Machina, taken to a Zondura, Sebra, Nank Sebra, Taswa. The Capson was in Tima Jean Labdi, Cocklam Sankogro. Don't the career said, Nasok Dharma Hibadilla Chu said, Kato, Chushi, but don't call your race. All Chushivade. The data Kato journal phenomena chat Yoruba. Jimson Caresina the Dharma Delama, choose the juice Yaswana, choose Yimbate, Mente, Cheno Yora, Cheno Yora. Juice the Zoji Jaya Rangi Bota, Zoji Majapa Chumambo Yorba. The solar Draden got on the Demi Bacha Yoris. Then you choose the Antaratungan juice, Buddha Dharma Delazo.
So the Tibetan term for Dharma is Chu, right? And so there's actually it's not exactly when we say it means fixing something, fixing. So that Chu and Ju, maybe you hear the difference. So Chu has more aspiration and Ju has is more a harsh sound, right? But it sounds almost the same. So the Chu is the Dharma and the Ju is fixing something. It's not the same word. It sounds the same though, almost. So then if the Dharma means to fix, if Chu means Ju, then why don't we just call it fix, like the fixer, one who fixes? Why do we have to call it like the first one, Chu, with the aspirated one? Why not just call it Ju, the one that fixes? It's because also the term, the Sanskrit term Dharma is a Sanskrit term which it does not just mean Buddha Dharma, but it also is a general term that means phenomena. So for example, all phenomena are also Chu, so the aspirated one, the first one. So then if we would call the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma, the second one, Chu, fixing, right, then the other one would be lost, and one wouldn't understand that it could also apply to all phenomena. And so, because sometimes if we would leave it like that, and if we would call Dharma, the Buddha Dharma Ju, is the second one, then in the context of the Buddha Dharma, people would understand, but not in the context of it's all phenomena. So, for example, there's this logical phrase that says, through the general name of something, you can understand the particularity of something. For example, if somebody holds a mala, then that's a general name. So you're trying to point out a person and say, oh, that person with the mala. So that's the general kind of name that you give to that person, the one with the mala. So if there's a lot of people holding malas, then you won't know who that is. But if there's just like 3 people, then and one is holding a mala, and you said that the one with the mala, then you know immediately which one it is. So the general name would be like Chu, and the particularity are those 3 people. And so that's basically the reason why it is not called, the Buddha Dharma is not called the Chu, but it's called Chu. So the Dharma means, Buddha Dharma means to fix one's mind. And so we said that it's important, one way to do that is, in the Dharma, is we do that through discussion, debate. And so in order for that really to become effective when it comes to changing our mind, then it's also important that we are not fixated on our viewpoint as being the right one, that we are right in the way we are thinking. So, because otherwise, if you just think that this is what I have to say and I know it is right, then there's really a danger that things could get uncomfortable, and you start arguing with somebody and even get angry. And then you might even say, people might then accuse each other and use harsh words. People get disturbed like that. So this is not how we should engage in discussion. So ideally, for example, when you have a discussion with somebody about something, then you have your viewpoint and you think that this is what I believe to be true. And so then that's what you tell the person. And after you finish talking, then the other person talks, and other person does not agree and says, no, I don't agree. And then they tell you why they don't agree. So what's important at that point is that you have enough intelligence to actually listen to what the other person is saying, not just thinking about fixating on your point and thinking what you're going to say next, but really listen to what the other person has to say, every word, and try to understand what they are actually saying, and then give an appropriate answer to that. So think in this way, because that way, if you discuss things in this way, then people will not get unhappy and frustrated with each other. So that won't happen, frustration won't happen if you use your intelligence when having a discussion and when explaining something. And then what you say may actually also be of benefit to the other person. So in this way, it is an exchange where we are also benefiting each other. And so that's how we discuss. And of course, the Dharma hasn't spread for that purpose, but discussion is a way for us to refine our understanding of the Dharma, kind of to polish our mind. So again, we have to know how to discuss. It is said, there's a saying in Tibetan, it's not enough to know that you should do it, but you must also know how to do it. So it's not enough to know that you should have discussion, but it's important to know how to have discussion. Because if you don't know how to have discussion, you just have a discussion, then it's possible that people will get very defensive of their viewpoints and then really harden up, and there is disharmony between those people. And then on top of that, if there's a new person in that group, they might be completely put off and think that I don't dare to say anything because look at these people, they are all angry at each other when they're talking to each other. So and then they feel like it's for no reason they're getting angry at each other. So ideally, when you're having a discussion, therefore do it with an altruistic mind and a tolerance, but at least use your intelligence and listen to what the other person really has to say, not fixating on what I have to say is always right. Because if you fixate in this way, then the situation will just get worse, and it's good to sustain our relations. So good to listen to what other people have to say. So this is the method to do it, so that we can really kind of coexist, discussing things in the long term.
Tana dolen chi backup satene yang chamre soso glavya te takta ndrek de ba yong yore ying cholin ja yong ba de mandek ba yong yore ta den de ta hi chi yin ping tone dolen che yong ba yina teni ying la ba de mandek ba cha ne tarong yin de chi uchuk do che ne kurang la ba de takta ndrek do sam ba chungwa yina dolen chi sa te ke chor teni 다 될지 소소 메데와 모용 찹드 가래 용거 요르스나 장바다 쯔와 닌제 지연 거 닌제다 고때다베제 고도마도 나야 또데 바케다 데다베제 당 내나리 데다베지 노사 닌제 지연 용거 요르 디찹라 zuba de rang ngang de la nyamli cha de 요르 zuba nyamli den de ngacho 다 돌렌트 소치디 찌용게 제 지당도 드나 시부톤에 나나 드네 베 핀도 쳔보여 랑라핀 인라핀 드나 좀 핀도 쳔보여 양 갑갑스 제다 히랍 그다네요 간자 타직도 돌렌 자냐 제거를 라보여 말이에요 선자제 수소 드나베네 돌렌 제네드니 가도이나 제 돌렌도 지디된 테스카블레 용킨 드나이나 드는 참이야 이거스 the mixachi dolendo the kanzade nyamdo tapkarchi dolendo sukjane chi goya yong yo marwa dele soso ke gomja je gom shibaden tonglam shibade je gom ro cha je gom ri cha de yor gandar je gom de tonglam ke char to do yor is je gom de lai nang gong da je gom je ba chi ne gom ja yan do de a yarjen do tonglam cha ro Tenza, Jegomji, the dying sare, de Nakandayan sare, Samne, the Dati, the Jegomji, Chusu Resa, Canis Kawan Chin the Hamo, the Dai Jegomji, Tenipe, that's on Huches, a Tikala Tane, the Rachin Yorwa, and this sex so similar, John Darted Yobari. Semde da gu bo jing na yi cha de yoren ga su semde da gu bo se de da de han mok shu ma nyong ba da la gan da wo ja ma nyong ba da da che na de ne ko la tambo ga ja de ne ko shu ya ta phi che na de ne ko ke le la bo ngli mi ji ne pe ka le che bo yore The Tenecola, the Atsog to Zun Riche, Tablam, Biju Tamaina, the Gale Galaco, then a tassage, the Mok Hunyada, which chaza de Denis Soso Rawang Chado, Kandavi Hungo, Trigonatico, Aranzo Kalojerto Yobanayi, then in Aranzo Semteang, Deta Yeria, then Zunritang, the Sokotone, Tablam Nide, Garchimbore. Then the so nang neta, Garchihuche, Jinshi then de Garchimbore, Taji in a yajo gonamajo gonang, so tasaps in a Kaluya do, Dinai tasaps a college looks at it, and a dog on a church and a dog at church. Then it dark or Godoa, that Dinai around gave us all a yajo gonary, gave us tonic pen, a jegomlan jogonary, jogomlan jogonary, thing in the gang that Goinaya. Jinshike, then is Sam the Pakalo Jortarabji, the Garchimbore. Tata Padongazo, same ke Jorsumarua, same Jinshi Kaloju, same Yibade, Zingwa Nabaji in Rochade, Zingwa Nabaji so called Namto than Dema, the Lord and Chade Bocabso, Namto than Dede Chad. Then he same day. Then Kogan also get Jinshi de la one chat take you. Jinshi la one chat mete. Koran Gang Dindin Jino. Koran Gang Dindi Jet, Ganga Longa got Koran Levium. Ganga Kahin Gola Koran Goyore, Gola Ganga Kahin Gola Koran Goyore, Ganga Gale Gale Gahe, Zubo Yina Yin Kala Koran Goyore, Galen Gahe, Sam Koran Kala Koyan Goyore. Sam the Koran da dig up so Tendacha Yore. They same getting hill at 1 years. Then Jinshi same the power 1 years. That's Sanji Tamji that Jinshi same the power 1 years. Then that Shepherd Chamber Huge same getting hill at 1 years. Ganga Misala Ganga Zoyong Yobari. Jinshi same the power 1 year to Vina. Ganga de Ganga Mipa Charo. Munedan. That the so Sanjay song of Chudus of Lomnian Rowache, the Da, Yuntin or Ren Tonde. Singune Tanach lower the then dead last to Bachi Modo Yinda Sama Luton Gosari Samson so Sibarwa. The Gandarda, then our Marina Yang. The Sola Gawa, the Roa to Soya, per the Ridu, then a Metsenantana, Metsen dinner, Jinang Dubo, Metsi Jetava. Jinshi Ton Yonkore. Metsen and Hiva Hibde go Lakoyore, so Jinhila to the Yoruba. So Jinhila to the Yuza, and that's okay. That Jinhi danger there. Garchi Mambu Yobanang, Garchihite. In some. When a Jinhi is in the Yechimbo. Taubar Jayana Pingayore Gong is that. Teni Gonda Mani had the Tongongroa, the Kalaje Kawaina, Tate Talaya Boyoda. Numa Chaja Chimbo Gonkin to Soke, Nana Chala Hirama Yan Zegumare, Sungdoa. Kansan Tenico, Tinhirang Tin. That ends on us okay. So maintenance Sanju the Garilago Hergo Dumba Demotas so Dumba Hasake Melon Yora Melon that day Nula then it he said that he get Sanju don't do that in hit Ingram that another ping he will ping your barres.
So then, when you're having a discussion with someone, and so sometimes maybe you really feel that what you're saying is the correct view, and that the other person is wrong in their view. But so sometimes the other person still insists that they are right, and so then instead of getting, feeling uncomfortable about that or kind of irritated about that, cultivate some compassion for that person and just feel that that this person maybe just is very prideful. You understand? I mean, you think that, and just feel compassion for them. And if compassion arises, then that actually becomes a practice of patience. And in this way, such a discussion really actually becomes the other and also self. And sometimes also there's no anything at all. So saying that we should have discussions also doesn't mean that we should always and only have discussions. So we also, again, we have to use our intelligence to know when to stop having a discussion. Because sometimes if we just talk about anything, sometimes it gets really difficult. And when you notice that happening, it's better to stop the discussion. There's no need to insist that this has to be discussed. So then you can just come back to your meditation and keep analyzing. Actually, there's analytical meditation, and it is said that analytical meditation eventually leads to the path of seeing. So when we analyze, we really think deeply about things. And when we think about something deep, for example, for 1 hour or so, know where that hour went. It's over so quickly. So this is how we train the mind when we analyze. We really think very deeply. The mind first is like a wild horse that no one ever rode. And it first needs to be tamed if you want to ride the horse. The horse had never had a saddle on it. Nobody ever rode it. So in the beginning, it'd be very obstinate and very difficult to deal with that horse. But then we have to persevere with taming the horse. Like we need to practice training our mind diligently and apply the methods given to us. And then slowly things will get better and the mind gets more tame, like a horse, and then we can ride the horse, and then we can control the horse eventually. And once you can control the horse, you can direct it to go any direction. So that is what you can do then, like holding the bridle is like your mindfulness, then you are in control. And so to get there, it's important to be mindful of being very diligent and applying the methods given to us. And so then once you have mastered the mind, kind of tamed your horse, horses have something in their mouth that when you hold the bridle and when you pull left, it goes left, you pull right, it goes right. So then then the mind becomes just like that. You have complete control over the mind. You can just go anywhere. You can, for example, direct the mind toward virtue, or you can practice some analytical meditation, or you can practice like a resting meditation, or place the mind in any state of samadhi. So that is when mindfulness is in control. Then it can direct the mind. So right now, it's the mind that's in control of our mindfulness. It's basically the mind and our thoughts are so intermingled that the thoughts are really in control. Mindfulness is not in control right now. So we need to turn that around so that mindfulness is in control, and then we can use the mind and guide it, direct it into any direction. And then things become easier. Otherwise, we have to carry a lot of burden, a lot of hardships on us. For example, we carry some burdens on our heads or in our heads, and some burdens with our, we have to carry something with our hands and our legs and so on. We have all kinds of burdens to carry, but the greatest burden that we carry is really the burden of the mind. And so that's why it's so important that we train the mind so that mindfulness takes over control over the mind. So we have to turn that around. And that is what the Buddha had accomplished. And there is a huge difference when it comes to who is in control of the mind. So when the mind, mind here meaning the thinking mind, is in control, then often it creates a problem where there isn't even a problem. But on the other hand, if mindfulness is in control, then even if there is a problem, it doesn't appear to be a problem for the mind. So then it's not a big problem. So that's why we practice the Buddha Dharma and train and learn the Buddha Dharma. And so when you then hear about these qualities that can arise from practicing the Dharma, it's possible that one might feel that really nothing that's more important, nothing that is greater than that. This is what I have to do, and even if that means I have to give up other things. But even if you don't think in that way, at least by knowing that quality of the Dharma, you can increase your happiness, your joy in this lifetime. You'll just be a more happy person in this life, really because of mindfulness. Everyone is always talking about wanting to be at peace, having peace and being happy. Happiness and peace really depend on mindfulness, and that's why it's so important. And there's many important things, but the most important thing of all the important things is really to be mindful, which is also why we often write this word mindfulness on a piece of paper. We write it in very large letters, and then we stick it anywhere, like on a wall or on the ceiling, any kind of place where you look at frequently, or even when you go to sleep. This word mindfulness, so always remind yourself. Like in the old days, the Mahamudra practitioners would also say that that's what you should do, and you should not have, for this reason also, you should not have too many things in your room, in your home. It's because if there's not too much stuff, it's easier to be mindful. And so therefore, maybe we can make that a habit of putting some little reminder stickers around our house, wherever you're looking often, like where it says toilet, for example, you can say mindfulness, or when you go to the bathroom and you look into the mirror every day, then you could put a little sticker of mindfulness there and so on. So that's actually extremely helpful method for us to train the mind in mindfulness.
Tanda viditini jima kale ta de drinhi telachi drinhi sebe yige to solo tino mogopa so sem gotone drinhi tar simbar chine tanda yung ga yore sonre ta tanda ridu teni te ke pinto chimbo re tsende ke tata ke ta tren khatsang da o namba gotone je drinhi tela jonda ya bo tapsona teni ngarang so tata zubondane rongkang na yinji chade yore teni sem nambar hibandane rombo na yin chade yore denza ta rombo jin rongkang na ni ma dong so ayina ko pe kha phate chadu teni lelabo ndor chok yore de ngarang so tenda lelabo ndor thok yomar gains no luta sem teni korang in drawa sapo je ya chabare ti jimsen na tene teni jonga yebore je temram sen jonga temram sen yore 다 뜻은 알아서 채용도 채섬 달아대 남 달아대 락바다 차와스는데 남히 차라름 진가 가야 요래다 대인데 더소아체 희와 대와 루보 만인가 더 요마레 대 점생을 때네 때네 대값은 나조다 차조 요래 희나 요래 락바르도 때네 hincha 요래 소소게 혈라라데 버게 졸론줄레 레 때네 nam pinchi re ro mo to so thamje la cha ne tene pe dongha samje ma cha ba ji yong yo re sung ba re de yin za ta ti kap su che ge wi ni je ngeng go la phem ne ta churang gan ram la phem ne o ta tu dor se jing do ya yo re ta ma tan je dong ba kap sa Teni Tudrandon, Tachuran Semla Data with Har. Teni Data with Nawa Harion, Tikaps, Dandachi, Dandak Nawa, Carpo Hario, Kalam Shad the Techi, Nawa Malam Shad the Techi, Sen, Ren Chichuran, Tikaps, Moto Yongori. That Tikaps, Moto Batted, Churanke, Teni me Yapo, New Top Matate, Sendikan, Tinhiteke, Huichi Abrachigores. Send the color tin he up in swine, take up the ta, give he song yung batella, some not setting the day to goyore, some not te but take up the churang, some not the garche the yore, lude garche yo mare, some not the garche, some no gangla te by in a decala, that under nam hit in the yam duty, didn't take a langa, give he take a langa, gang to na chutik and roto goyores. Delatine, didn't chever cups, dungan yoron roa. Delatine Parducaps and Jicta Nyorondoa, the Rarina Tene, Devachi Hinkala Sopatam Jeke, Kubatam Jusong Yundu, to Devachi Hinland Rogeres. That data of Mataba in a young Chiwachi Lingo Yudu, that Chiwachi Tangaranzo Taratsama, Chupoji Chayala, Yen Tsin Veneta, Kabeja Yorua, that data of Kabeja Mogoa, Kahis Di Chupo, Jikin Namal, that. Jewa link to a carriage lang, cockable cake jama gosney. Chubo pala chubo in mamala chubo in batanala jewa link to a carriage in. And the pardola super the neck up so, then so catchy. Nala huxa, the won't true by in. Then taking art huxa, check ma chesogolo, Joe Yamtando, Caleusa, Ninsola super the nagala human, then Tori. Lata me la so but so ke Jiwalinzi ngal hyoktoba tin nane ya che tsering sa ne me sa tini ta tori ki yung tin dun su yore to so yu san chimsang la Jiwalin ban to so tamje yang chama chen de ke tin hin de kalara le tin hin de ktoni zochi che jaya yu de ba tan ra che yin za ta ngarang so ke tan ra thola sam no tang ne teni le jumje siba te atina na yore kachang gang na laimba le sejute gandar jawa chik cha do yore jawa te chorang gang je ba ti jisen rewe che te ta mi wa o ta te inza teni maso ke ta tanda bene tinhi te kar chimbo la tsag ho yore
So then if you train in mindfulness in that way, then slowly, eventually, it just becomes natural without you even having to look at that sign that you wrote for yourself. It's just always present naturally. So that's why to use such a method is really very helpful. And it's important to train in mindfulness in this life, because now in this life, our body is like a hotel, like a guest house. And the consciousness is like the guest. So if you train well in mindfulness, then when it's time for the guest to leave the guest house, then the guest can just pay their bill and then leave easily. But for us, it's usually not that easy to leave. And that's because our body and mind are just too much intermingled. They have too much become one. So then when we die, first the four elements dissolve one into the other. First the more coarse aspects dissolve, and then the more subtle aspects dissolve until consciousness dissolves, or thinking dissolves. And so at that time, it is very difficult for us usually to leave peacefully in a state of complete peace and relaxation. We're not able to do that because we are in a state of intense fear and pain, and especially attachment to those things that we have to leave behind. like our possessions and especially the people that we love, like our family members and our friends. And that attachment creates an unimaginable suffering and pain in the mind for that person. And sometimes a spiritual teacher comes to that person's deathbed and recites to them the liberation upon hearing in the Bardo Tudor, at the time of dying, and basically introduce them gradually to what happens in the Bardo, saying to them things like, now your mind, this will appear in your mind, and when this appears, that's what you should do. For example, when the whiteness appears, you should do this, or when the redness appears, do that, and so on. So at that time, if you're able to listen really carefully, that will be of great benefit. But your ability of listening carefully at that time, so whether or not you will be able to listen carefully at that time, depends on whether or not you have developed mindfulness in this throughout your entire lifetime. And at the time of death, that makes a huge difference. So because in your lifetime, if you have followed a guru and you have always listened to the guru's instructions with mindfulness, you have trained your mind in mindfulness, then at the time of death, you will also be able to focus on the words with mindfulness because you're accustomed to it. Because at that time, the body is not important. The mind is really most important. The consciousness that will go on. And therefore, if you are able at that time to listen to the words of the guru who is guiding you on the path, on the journey, then your mind will be able to stay there. So you will stay there, and as a result of that, first of all, you will experience much less suffering during the dying process. And also later in the Bardo, you will experience less fear. And then ideally, according to those instructions of the Guru, you then after that attain birth in a pure land like Devachan. And even if not, even if you are taking birth again, you might take birth in good family. For example, right now, we are all working really hard day and night in order to get rich. And imagine you're born in a family that's already really rich and you don't have to do anything. So there are some people who are just naturally born into these families and they don't have to work hard at all. And that's also because of their karma of taking birth, like their positive state of mind, basically. So it's that in the Bardo, maybe one possesses some mindfulness and is able to identify a womb. And so one is able to kind of discern between the different wombs. And one will not go then to one birthplace at a more inferior, miserable state of existence, where one will experience more suffering. So one will know how to avoid that, and one will enter a womb into the higher realms, such as humans and gods. And then among those, one will be born as one experiencing a longer life and having fewer illnesses and so on. And we speak about 7 qualities of the higher realms that one will then achieve when one takes birth again. And so all of that really has a big relationship to the mindfulness that we have cultivated in this life. Therefore, it's very important that we work on that, work on our mindfulness. And that's actually also connected to karma. The other day we mentioned that karma actually means action. So karma means action, which means that whatever you do will lead to a certain result. And therefore, also thinking from that perspective, it's very important to pay attention to working on mindfulness.
Thank you very much.
We do dedications in the yellow prayer book, page 11. By this merit may I attain omniscience, having defeated the enemies, my wrongdoings. May I liberate all beings who are tossed in the ocean of samsara by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. On page 16. Just as the hero Manjushri realized things as they are, and as did Samantabhadra too, I will follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all these virtues. And then in the blue prayer book on page 64, verse 21. May every being ailing with disease be freed at once from every malady. May all the sickness that afflicts the living be instantly and permanently healed.